Good morning, everybody. Welcome again to Theology 9. I am missing you guys, and I hope you're all doing well. I hope your families are healthy and that you have everything you need. If at any point during the week you need help with something, please don't hesitate to email me. And office hours are Monday morning and Friday afternoons. All right, so this week we're starting a new unit, Unit 4, Jesus Christ teaches us about ourselves. So you'll notice in previous weeks that we were focusing on Jesus' humanity, and now we're focusing on our own humanity as explained to us or revealed to us by Jesus. So let's present. All right, so part A, Jesus embodies what has been revealed in and through scriptures. Our objectives today are to explain why the dignity of all people should be respected, to explain what it means to be fully human, name and describe the human gifts which reflect God Himself, explain how humans can be created good but still require salvation, provide evidence that humans are destined for eternal glory with God, list ways that God continues to work on our sanctification in the world, and describe humans' role as stewards of creation. Our human dignity. So all people are entitled to respect because we are made in the image and likeness of God. And of course, God is ultimately entitled to all of our respect. And because we possess that divine image, and that's present in every person, we also are entitled to human dignity, the respect accorded by human dignity. Being fully human. So to be fully human means that we are everything God intended us to be. And CCC 357 tells us that being in the image of God, the human individual possesses the dignity of a person. In other words, we are a someone, not just a something. So plants and animals would be considered things or objects. I know some of you might disagree with me on the animal thing, and that's fine. But I think we can all agree that humans possess something unique that animals don't. So we have the respect of a someone, not just a something. Man is the only creature who is able to love God back. While God loves all of his creatures, only humans are capable of returning that love. Saint Irenaeus famously pointed out that the glory of God is a person fully alive. Moreover, a person's life is the vision of God. So I want to focus on the first part of that quote. The glory of God is a person fully alive. God only creates out of love. So in no other form of life is God's glory revealed the way it is within humans. So the glory of God is a person fully alive. That means when you are exactly who God intended you and calls you to be, you reflect the glory of God. Okay, care for God's creation. Being fully human also means caring for the gifts and creation that God has made for us. He has called us to be stewards. That means caretakers of His creation. CCC 358 tells us that God created everything for man, but man in turn was created to serve and love God and to offer all of creation back to Him. So in other words, if He gives us, delicious fruits in the world, we are supposed to cultivate that, grow them, and return and use them and give them to others who need them. And in doing so, we are offering that back to God. All right, 2402 says, in the beginning, God entrusted the earth and its resources to the common stewardship of mankind. That means it's all of our responsibility to take care of them, master them by labor, and enjoy their fruits. The goods of creation are destined for the whole human race. That means that nobody is entitled to any more than anyone else of God's creations. All right, now we're going to focus on the human gifts that God has given us. God has endowed only humans with the gifts of intellect, reason, free will, love, and communion. And let's explore those a little more deeply. So intellect and reason. Humans can learn things. We can discover truth. We can recognize God. And we can find the meaning of life and death. While you might be able to train your dog to do certain things, he doesn't learn them in the same way that humans learn. So a dog, when he hears a word or a particular sound of something, he may respond by going to fetch something or sitting down. but only humans can really understand the purpose of things like that. A dog wouldn't know on his own when to do those things if it weren't for that cue. So he can't go beyond what the basic command is. He can't critically think about what it means to sit or fetch. Discovering truth. Unlike any other creatures, because we have the ability to critically think and we have situational awareness, we can make judgments about the environment around us, and we can delve more deeply into things that we have questions about. We can recognize God. We have the ability to love, and we have the ability to appreciate love. And we can find the meaning of life and death. That's no easy task, but certainly because we're able to discover truth and because we're able to recognize God and because we are able to learn things, we can eventually come to the conclusions of what the meaning of life and death are. Free will. With free will, we're able to make choices, and a lot of those choices really involve following or rejecting God's will for us. And we can use our free will to improve ourselves. Communion. Communion means that we can have relationships with each other. We can seek help, we can show empathy for people who are suffering, and we can seek justice. We have a sense of right or wrong that calls us to respond by seeking justice. Love. Humans can show love to others. We can uphold people's human dignity, and in this way, we are very much like God, because God is love. So when we give to others and we uphold people's dignity and we provide things that people need that they don't have, we are giving the way God gives. All right, so humans are good, but they're not perfect. God created all people in his image and likeness, not all creatures, all people in his image and likeness. But because we sin, we are in need of salvation. This is one of the reasons that God became flesh, and you'll remember the term that's incarnation. Jesus came into the world to live, suffer, and die for humanity in order to rid the world of sin and death. So we need that because of original sin. We have to be reunited with God somehow. We are not perfect, but we are called to perfection. And so we have different tools that have been given to us by God to achieve that end. So let's look at some of these. In order to help us with sanctification, which is a big word for holiness, God offers us the church, the sacraments, and the priesthood. The church is where we go to worship and be in communion with another person and with other people. The church is where we can receive the sacraments. The sacraments give us the grace to live as God calls us, which is what is going to help us reach our perfection. And then the priesthood. The priesthood are the special individuals who can offer us the Eucharist, confessions, guidance, and other things. We must utilize these gifts in order to get to heaven. So I want to focus a little bit more on the sacraments. The two sacraments that help us most prominently in our quest for penance are baptism and penance, or reconciliation. Baptism removes original sin as well as all personal sins, and it gives us special graces. And as we read through the textbook this week and complete the homework, you'll get a better insight as to what those graces are. But here's the thing about baptism. It cannot be repeated, so penance is available to us when we need to be cleansed of personal sin, which we will commit throughout our lives. Destined for eternal glory with God. God created humans out of love. He didn't do it for his own benefit. If he did it for his own benefit, that would imply that God is lacking something, and God is not lacking anything. So the only reason to create would be for us. And because of original sin, we need to be reunited with him. And there's a lot of evidence that shows that we are destined for that reuniting. And let's look at what it says here. There are countless sources that point to the truth that humans are destined to be with God for eternity. Here are just a few. So I want to start with Matthew chapter 5, verse 8. So this comes from the Beatitudes. It says, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God." So this is a promise made by Jesus at the Sermon of the Mount. And I think what we can all agree that it means is that eventually we're going to see God in a new way. Sure, we can look around the world and we can derive that God exists in nature, he exists in other people, but this is a more literal sense of what is to come in heaven. So let's return. And let's look at CCC 1023. Those who die in God's grace and friendship and are perfectly purified live forever with Christ. They are like God forever, for they, quote, see him as he is, face to face. Again, we will see God. 1026. By his death and resurrection, Jesus Christ has opened heaven to us. The life of the blessed consists in the full and perfect possession of the fruits of the redemption accomplished by Christ. He makes partners in his heavenly glorification those who have believed in him and remained faithful to his will. Heaven is the blessed community of all who are perfectly incorporated into Christ. Again, it is a promise that we will be with him. And then Matthew 24:13. But the one who endures to the end will be saved. If you've noticed that 3 out of these 4 references all make it very clear that we're not just going to end up in heaven. There's work that has to be accomplished. Matthew 24:13 says, the one who endures. That means we're expected to do certain things. And that is why he gave us the tools that we need to be reunited with him, such as the sacraments, the priesthood, and the church. So going back to 1023, what does it say here? Those who die in God's grace and friendship. So we have to be in friendship with God, which means we're not dying with mortal sin on our hearts. Oops. Okay, sorry about that glitch there. So that's our lesson for the week. I want to go back to our objectives and make sure we've accomplished them. So explain why the dignity of all people should be respected. It should be respected because we're all created in the divine image. We are created in the image and likeness of God. What it means to be fully human is to be who God called us to be. And that happens by being stewards of creation, by using our intellect, our reason, our free will, and our sense of communion to be who we are called to be. And that ties in with number 3, naming and describing the gifts which reflect God himself. Explain how humans can be created good, but still require salvation. So remember, we're not perfect. We were sent in Jesus Christ to accomplish our salvation because we lost it in the Garden of Eden when original sin was introduced to the world. Provide evidence that humans are destined for eternal glory with God. We have the 4 examples on the last slide, but there are countless examples, and I encourage you to just do a quick Google search of evidence that we are destined for heaven with God, and you'll see a lot of information. List ways that God continues to work on our sanctification in the world. We have the church, we have the sacraments, and we have the priesthood as 3 examples. And describe humans' role as stewards of creation. God gave us everything in the world to use for our own benefit, but we also have to, in return, show respect to that thing, care for it, and in that we return it back to him. So that concludes our lesson, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to email me. Thank you very much, and everybody have a great week.